Aidan Blake's boots cracked against the brittle ice as he trudged across the endless white plains of Uranus's northern mountains. The wind howled like a wild beast, slicing through the heavy layers of his insulated suit, forcing him to press his chin deeper into the collar. The sky above him shimmered with pale green and blue auroras, a silent reminder of beauty in a place where hope seemed buried beneath hard labor and colder hearts. Each step was a battle against exhaustion, and every breath felt like inhaling shards of glass. For years, humans had toiled here, digging crystalline ore that glowed with alien energy. The Xelnari Dominion claimed the planet's riches, and Aidan, once a celebrated soldier on Earth, found himself reduced to carting heavy loads for Dominion overseers. Armed drones patrolled overhead, their cold lenses scanning for any sign of dissent. Whenever he dared to look up, the drones would pivot, their red sensors burning into his vision. He had learned quickly that protest meant swift punishment, sometimes worse. Today felt different. Today, Aidan sensed a change in the air. He paused beside a jagged outcrop of ice and reached for his plasma cutter, checking its charge with a practiced hand. Beneath layers of frost, the crystal veins thrummed with faint warmth, as if alive. He pried loose a jagged shard and cradled it, watching the glow pulse. That's when he saw it. A flash of violet light dancing beyond the next ridge, too precise, too deliberate to be a trick of the ice. Curiosity tangled with dread in his chest. He glanced around. No drones hovered close, and the overseer's outpost lay miles behind him. Summoning courage he hadn't felt for months, he strapped the crystal shard to his belt and moved toward the light. Each step brought him deeper into a valley carved by ancient storms, where the wind seemed to whisper secrets. As he crested a small rise, the storm's roar softened, and he stumbled into a hollow carved into the ice. There, half buried in snow, lay an alien figure. Tall and lithe, with skin that shimmered bluish-gray even in the dim glow of the ore shard. The figure wore tattered armor that hinted at a graceful culture brought low. Aidan's heart hammered. This was no Dominion soldier, this was something else. He knelt beside the figure, brushing snow from a chest wound that pulsed with each shallow breath. Tendrils of frost clung to the wound, crystallizing in patterns both beautiful and cruel. Against every order burned into his memory, he peeled back his glove and pressed a warming field patch against the wound. The alien's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises of violet that mirrored the light he had chased. For a moment, they stared at each other, two enemies bound by survival. Aidan felt a crack in his resolve, a spark of something more than duty. As the alien's breathing steadied, he realized that this encounter would change everything. Beneath the storm's howl, a new story was beginning, one that neither human nor Xelnari Dominion could have foreseen. Aidan moved carefully through the hollow, balancing on icy ridges and loose snow. The violet-eyed alien stirred beneath his warming patch, her breaths coming easier now. He knelt for a moment, studying her delicate features. The soft hum of the ore shard at his belt seemed louder here, as if urging him forward. He spoke quietly, using the low tones he had learned during his time underground. "Can you hear me?" he asked, pressing a hand to the patch's control. The alien's eyelids fluttered, and she tried to lift her head. Pain flickered across her face, but she managed a nod. "You're safe," Aidan said, his voice steady. "I'll help you." He studied her armor, noting the strange symbols etched into the metal. They curved like frozen waves, unfamiliar and elegant. He wondered what story they told. The alien's gaze drifted to the crystal shard at his belt. Her violet eyes widened, and she reached a trembling hand toward it. Aidan hesitated, then unclipped the shard and held it out. She took it with gentle fingers, her touch light enough to send a thrill down his spine. "What is this?" Aidan whispered, watching her face. She closed her eyes and inhaled deeply, as if drawing strength from the warm glow. When she opened them again, her voice came in a soft hiss. "This crystal holds memories," she said. Each word felt weighted, husky with emotion. "Our history, our pain." She placed the shard on a ledge of ice and laid a hand over it. The glow pulsed, casting dancing lights across her features. Aiden crouched beside her. "Why were you alone?" he asked. "And why were Dominion drones chasing you?" The alien winced, her lips pale against her bluish skin. She tried to sit up, but pain stabbed through her chest. "I fled the Dominion's purge," she managed. "They turned against us." Her violet eyes darkened. "They once claimed to unite our worlds. Instead, they enslaved millions." She looked at Aiden, her gaze fierce. "And they will not stop." Aiden's heart tightened. He thought of the months spent hauling ore under the Overseer's glare. He had assumed the Dominion's rule was absolute. Now he saw the cracks in their power. He offered a small smile. "You're not alone anymore. I'll make sure of that." The alien let out a soft breath and leaned back against the icy wall. She looked up at the aurora-lit sky, the colors shimmering through the cavern's mouth. "The light you followed," she said softly, "was a signal. I tried to call for help." Her voice faltered, but no one answered. Aiden's jaw clenched. He rose to his feet and looked toward the entrance of the hollow. The wind had calmed, the storm now a distant roar. "We need to move," he said. "The drones will be back." He reached for her hand, offering support. She took it without hesitation. For a moment, their fingers brushed, and warmth spread through Aiden's frozen nerves. Together, they stepped into the drifting snow, leaving the hollow behind. With every step, the bond between human and alien grew stronger, fueled by shared danger and an unspoken promise of hope. Aiden led the alien through the swirling snow toward a distant glow on the horizon. The aurora still danced overhead, painting the sky in ghostly greens and blues. Each footstep sank into the soft powder, and the wind tugged at their suits as if urging them onward. "What do you call yourself?" Aiden asked, glancing sideways at her. She winced once, gripping his arm to steady herself. "Allura," she whispered. Her violet eyes searched the sky, wary of sudden dangers. "And you?" "Aiden," he replied. "We're close. You'll see signs soon." They crested a gentle hill, and jagged spires of ice formed a natural barrier. Beyond them, a cluster of lights blinked, warm, steady points in the frozen wasteland. As they approached, the lights resolved into torches and lanterns strung between ice pillars. Makeshift shelters of metal and glass formed the small camp. Rebel sentries spotted them first. One, a scarred man with a mechanical arm, raised a rifle. "Halt!" he shouted, breath misting in the air. Aiden stopped and held up empty hands. Allura stayed close, her breathing steady but tense. "We come with news," Aiden said, "and a prisoner who can guide us inside." His tone was firm but respectful. Behind him, two more rebels emerged, weapons trained on Allura. She stepped forward, raising her hands. "I am no prisoner," she stated, voice low and even. "I am a culinary dissident. My people need help." Her words carried a weight that made the rebels hesitate. The scared sentry lowered his rifle slightly. "Show us you're telling the truth," he said. Aiden nodded and unclipped the ore shard from his belt. Its soft glow pulsed like a heartbeat. Allura's eyes widened. She reached out, fingertips brushing the shard's surface. It responded, flaring briefly. The sentries exchanged looks, awe and suspicion mingling. "That crystal holds our memories," Allura explained. "It proves my claim." She turned to Aiden. "Tell them about the purge." Aiden swallowed. He had only just learned of her people's suffering. Clearing his throat, he described how he found Allura wounded, how she risked her life to escape Dominion forces, and the horror of the Soulforge hidden deep within the mountains. He spoke of enslaved humans and captive Selnari alike, of stolen memories and broken lives. As he spoke, more rebels gathered, miners, engineers, and former soldiers. Their expressions hardened with anger and resolve. At their center stood General Rohan, tall and authoritative, his eyes icy blue. "You bring serious charges," Roman said, stepping forward. "The Dominion is our enemy, but these claims," he paused, looking at Allura. "If true, they change everything." Allura nodded, though her breathing remained shallow. "We share a common enemy," she said, "and a shared fate. Help me stop the Soulforge." and together we can end the Dominion's reign." A murmur ran through the crowd. The wind carried their voices like echoes in an ice hall. Rohan studied Allura's face, her scars and determination laid bare. Then he turned to Aiden. "Are you certain?" he asked quietly. Aiden looked at Allura's fragile form. He thought of her trust and of the spark of hope ignited between them. "I am," he replied. General Rohan raised a hand, and the murmurs stilled. "So be it," he declared. "We will hear her plan." As the rebels led them into the heart of the Ice Spire's citadel, Aiden felt a shifting tide. The frozen chains of oppression were cracking, cracks born of unity between two worlds and the courage to stand together. Aiden's breath came in ragged gasps as he and Allura prepared for the coming fight. The rebel camp had judged her story true, but they also knew Dominion patrols were closing in fast. Torches flickered against ice walls, casting long shadows that trembled with every gust of wind. Aiden checked his plasma cutter and gripped the butt of his sidearm. Allura flexed her slender fingers, the faint glow from the ore shard at her belt pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Suddenly, a distant rumble echoed across the frozen plain. The patrol had arrived. Through the camp's ice gate, shapes emerged, 6 Dominion shock troopers in white armor, their helmets gleaming like stars against the snow. Hovering drones buzzed above them, their low hum carrying menace. General Rohan barked orders. "Hold the line," he shouted, voice strong despite the whipping wind. Rebels took positions behind ice barriers and stacked crates, eyes fierce with resolve. Aiden glanced at Allura. She nodded once, steeling herself. Together, they stepped forward. The first trooper raised a rifle, red targeting laser slicing the air. Aiden dove to one side, firing his plasma cutter in a sweeping arc. The cutter's beam sizzled through the air, striking the trooper's rifle and sending sparks flying. The soldier dropped to one knee, stunned. Allura moved like water, dashing past him and plunging a serrated blade into his armor. The shock trooper collapsed silently, the snow turning red. Above, a drone swooped low, scanning for life signs. Allura hurled the ore shard upward. It glowed brighter than ever, drawing the drone's attention. The machine hesitated, its rotor blades stuttering, then plunged into the ground with a crackle of broken circuits. Rebels cheered, but there was no time to celebrate. Aiden crouched behind an ice pillar as another trooper advanced. He listened to the soldier's boots crunching on ice, measured each step. When the moment came, Aiden lunged, body low, and rammed into the trooper's midsection. The soldier staggered, firing wildly. Aiden curled to the side as a plasma bolt scorched the ice where he had stood. With a quick kick, he sent the soldier crashing into the wall, then disarmed him with a swift twist of his wrist. Allura joined him, breath visible in the cold air. "We need to push them back," she said in a quiet rush. Her voice carried strength forged by loss. Aiden nodded and they moved as one. On their flank, rebels ignited charge packs, sending shards of ice and metal flying. The troopers regrouped, forming a loose line. Aiden raised his sidearm and shouted, "Now!" A thunder of plasma bolts erupted, lighting up the cavern like artificial daylight. Shot after shot, the Dominion armor cracked, and troopers fell one by one. The final shock trooper dropped his rifle and raised his hands. Above, the last drone spiraled out of control, its metal frame smoking. Silence spread across the icy battlefield, broken only by distant howls of the wind. Aiden and Allura stood side by side, their suits dented and scorched. General Rohan approached, clapping a heavy hand on Aiden's shoulder. "Well fought," he said. His gaze shifted to Allura, gratitude and caution warring in his expression. Allura tucked the ore shard safely back into her belt. She looked at the fallen troopers and the silent drones, her violet eyes tired but unbowed. "This is only the beginning," she whispered. Aiden squeezed her hand. "We'll face what comes next," he replied. Together, they turned toward the heart of the mountain, where the Soulforge waited, and the real battle would begin. Aiden and Allura stepped through the jagged crystalline gates of the Ice Spire's citadel. The air inside felt different, warmer, charged with purpose. The vast hall stretched before them, its ceiling arcing high above like a frozen sky. Walls of blue-tinted ice reflected torchlight in shifting patterns. Every footstep echoed, mingling with distant voices and the hum of makeshift machinery. Rebels lined the hall, their faces marked by soot and determination. Some paused their work to stare, murmurs rising like a gathering storm. Allura's violet eyes flicked nervously from one soldier to another. Her tall frame cast a slender shadow on the ice floor. Aiden closed the gap between them, offering silent support. At the hall center stood General Rohan. His broad shoulders and stern posture made him look as unyielding as the ice itself. He wore a heavy fur cloak and held a data pad close to his chest. When he saw Allura, his icy blue gaze hardened. He raised a hand, and the hall fell silent. "Traitor," Rowan said, his voice low but carrying across the room. "You bring an alien here, and ask us to trust her word." He stepped forward, the data pad in his hand displaying images of Dominion patrols and human prisoners. "Our people have suffered under Excelnary rule for generations. Why should this one be any different?" Aiden stepped beside Allura, facing Rohan without hesitation. "She saved my life," he said. His tone was firm but respectful. "I found her wounded in the snow. She risked everything to escape. She's not like the Dominion soldiers we fight." A ripple ran through the rebel ranks. Some nodded, remembering the bodies they had found in the ice. Others glared, their hands tightening around weapons. Allura drew a shaky breath and placed a hand on a nearby ice pillar for balance. "I know trust is earned," she said, voice soft but clear. "I was once part of the Dominion's elite. I believed in their cause, until I saw what they did to my people. I watched them steal memories, enslave humans, and destroy villages. I fled because I could no longer be part of that cruelty." Rohan's jaw tightened. He flipped the data pad, showing a diagram of the soul forge deep within the mountain. "If what you say is true, we gain nothing by taking the war deeper into these tunnels. We could lose everything." Aiden raised his voice. "We gain freedom. We gain the chance to end this reign. Without Allura's knowledge, we cannot find or destroy the soul forge. If we delay, the Dominion will strengthen its hold." A murmur of agreement rippled through the rebels. A young engineer, her face streaked with ice and sweat, spoke up. "He's right. Her insight could save lives." Others nodded, stepping forward to surround Allura and Aiden with cautious solidarity. General Rohan studied their faces, then looked back at Allura. The silence stretched until he finally exhaled and lowered his head. "Very well," he said. "We will hear your plan. But know this, if you betray us, there will be no mercy." Allura bowed her head in gratitude. Aiden squeezed her shoulder, relief washing over him. Together, they turned toward the tunnels that led deeper into the mountain. As they walked, the torchlight flickered on the ice walls, revealing faint carvings, ancient warnings and promises alike. Side by side, human and Selnary prepared to face the heart of the Dominion's power, bound by a fragile trust and a hope that burned brighter than a crystal. Aiden and Allura emerged from the citadel into the open air, where Uranus's auroras danced like living rivers. Their colors shimmered overhead in shades of green and violet, casting an otherworldly glow on the snow. General Rohan had arranged a training ground here, a flat expanse ringed by ice pillars and tether lines that held crates of practice drones. "We start with 0 drills," Allura said, pointing to the cables suspended above. "In Uranus's low gravity, movement is different. You'll need to learn to float and strike." She clipped a tether to her belt and pushed off an ice pillar, launching herself into a graceful arc. Aiden watched, arms crossed against the cold. He followed her example, though his first push sent him careening into a pillar. Snow sprayed everywhere, and Allura laughed, soft, musical, and surprising in these harsh lands. Aiden spat out a mouthful of snow and grinned, rubbing his shoulder. "This gravity feels like a trampoline made of ice," he joked. Allura's laughter warmed him more than any heater ever could. Over the next hour, they moved through drills. Allura demonstrated fluid spins, her blade slicing harmlessly through the air. Aiden studied her form, mimicking the motion with his cutter. Each time he improved, Allura offered quick tips. "Bend your knees more," she said once. "You'll control your momentum." Her voice held pride rather than disdain. Between exercises, they paused to catch their breath. The auroras above pulsed like a heartbeat. Aiden glanced at Allura's profile, her cheekbones sharp, her hair a halo in the colored light. He realized how little he knew about her world. "Tell me more about culinary customs," he said quietly. She looked at him, surprise flickering in her violet eyes. "We value memory," she explained as they walked along glowing ice runes. "Our art, our songs, our very names are recorded in crystals like those you mine. To lose memory is to lose self." She tapped the ore shard at her belt, and it pulsed once, softly. "That's why the soul forge is so dangerous." Aiden nodded, thinking of his own past life on Earth, faces and places he could barely recall. The idea that memories could be stolen felt like a violation deeper than any physical wound. He reached out and brushed a stray lock of hair from Allura's face. Her skin was cold to the touch, but her hand found his wrist, grounding him. Just then, a rebel sharpshooter called out from a nearby ice tower. "Nice moves, but don't forget there's real combat ahead." His voice carried both respect and warning. Allura straightened, her training face returning. "Of course," she said. "This is only practice." Aiden squared his shoulders, ready for what came next. As night deepened, the auroras faded and torches flickered back to life. Aiden and Allura stood side by side, their breaths misting between them. They had learned each other's strengths and weaknesses in these drills. In the silent snow, their shared laughter and challenges had woven a bond stronger than any treaty. Together, they prepared to carry that unity into the heart of the mountain, and whatever battles lay ahead. Aiden and Allura stood at the base of Icefall Peak, its jagged cliffs rising like frozen teeth into the swirling sky. The wind whipped against their suits, carrying tiny shards of ice that stung exposed skin. Above them, the Dominion watchtowers loomed on narrow ledges, sentinel lights scanning the cavernous slopes. "Stay close," Allura whispered, her breath visible in the cold air. She pointed to a narrow crevice between two sheer walls of ice. "We enter here. Drones rarely patrol this path." Aiden nodded, gripping his sidearm and plasma cutter. Together, they slipped into the crevice. The tunnel narrowed until their shoulders brushed the walls, the sound of their breathing echoing between ice. A faint glow from bioluminescent lichen painted the passage in an eerie blue. Suddenly, the tunnel opened onto a hidden ledge. Below, Dominion guards paced, rifles cradled in their arms. Allura pressed a hand to Aiden's back. "Wait for my signal," she murmured. "We cross when the drone passes." A low hum grew in the air as a patrol drone swooped past, its sensors scanning the ice walls. When it drifted beyond the ledge, Allura gave a sharp nod. They sprinted across the ledge, hearts pounding, until they reached a collapsed ice wall that hid them from view. Inside the crevice beyond, the air felt warmer. Aiden pulled out a data pad and checked Allura's hand-drawn map. "Icefall Peak Command Center should be ahead," he said softly. They crept forward, each step measured to avoid loose ice. Around a corner, they found a guard station carved into the ice. Two soldiers chattered over a control panel. Allura placed a finger to her lips. "I'll handle this," she said, slipping her hand into a hidden pocket and drawing a small device. She pressed it against the panel's surface, and it glowed briefly. The panel screen flickered, then displayed a live feed of the outer perimeter. The soldiers exchanged puzzled looks as their comms chat filled with false alerts. "What the?" one guard began, but Allura pressed a finger to his lips before he could shout. With a swift, silent move, she tapped a tranquilizer dart from her belt and fired. It struck his neck, and he slumped forward. The second guard spun around, rifle aimed, but Aiden shot a bolt from his plasma cutter at the ice under the guard's feet. The ice fractured with a high-pitched crack, sending the soldier crashing into the wall. He lay unconscious on the frozen floor. Allura exhaled quietly. Doors open, she said, pushing a hidden switch. A bulkhead slid aside, revealing a narrow stairwell of glistening ice. They climbed in silence, the stairs winding upward. Every so often a distant explosion echoed. A rebel diversion below. Above, they heard the murmur of voices. At the top, they peeked through a sliver in the door and saw the command center, a room filled with consoles, holo-displays showing troop movements, and a massive viewport overlooking Uranus's swirling atmosphere. Aiden took in the controls. If we disable their comms, the reinforcements can't call for help, he said. Elira nodded and moved toward the central console. She placed her hands on the panel and whispered selenary commands, words of ancient power that caused the controls to flicker. The door behind them hissed open. 2 shock troopers entered, weapons raised. Elira glanced at Aiden. Without hesitation, he opened fire. Plasma bolts arced through the room, striking the troopers' armor with sizzling impact. They fell, and Elira pressed the final override. Alarms blared, then died. Outside, the foundations of Icefall Peak trembled. Aiden grabbed Elira's hand. "We did it," he whispered. She smiled, violet eyes bright. Together, they slipped out through the doorway, disappearing into the mountain's heart as the first cracks of a new rebellion echoed behind them. Aiden and Elira led the small rebel squad through winding tunnels lit by faint bioluminescent veins. The air grew warmer with each step, and the echo of distant machinery pulsed through the stone. Torches flickered as they passed, casting dancing shadows that seemed alive. General Rohan walked beside them, datapad in hand, eyes fixed on Elira's hand-drawn map. The walls shifted from pure ice to bands of molten crystal, glowing like rivers of light beneath their boots. A soft hum filled the corridor, growing louder until the narrow passage opened into a vast cavern. In the center of the cavern lay the Soul Forge. It rose from the floor like an iron mountain, twisted cables and cooling plates spiraling to a domed ceiling. Rivers of glowing plasma ran through channels hewn in the metal, and the heat made the air shimmer. Banks of control consoles lined one side, where Selnary engineers worked under Dominion overseers' watchful eyes. Prisoners, human and alien alike, stood in shackles along a raised platform, their eyes hollow and resigned. Every few seconds, a beam of energy pulsed from the forge into the captives, and each pulse seemed to drain a spark from their souls. Aiden's hand tightened on his sidearm. He had never seen so much power in one place. "This is worse than we thought," he muttered. Elira's violet eyes glistened with pain as she watched a captive Selnary slump forward, lifeless. "The Dominion uses the forge to harvest memories," she whispered. "Every memory gives them strength. Every soul fuels their war machines." Her voice trembled but did not break. Around them, rebels shifted nervously, weapons raised but uncertain whom to fire upon first. General Rohan cleared his throat. "We destroy the forge, we free them all," he said, voice echoing. But the explosion could collapse this entire mountain. He met Elira's gaze. "What then?" She inhaled slowly. "If it collapses, Uranus's core may destabilize. Many Selnary worlds depend on this forge's power." The hall fell silent. Even the low hum of the forge seemed to pause. Aiden stepped between them. "We can't let them keep doing this," he said. "We find another way to channel power for your people." He turned to the rebels. "We need supplies and a secured perimeter. We move fast, or they'll crush us." As they planned, alarms blared. Dominion soldiers flooded into the cavern from shadowed side tunnels. Rohan raised his hand. "Hold position," he shouted. Plasma bolts streaked through the heat, and the rebels returned fire. Aiden and Elira ducked behind a console bank, hearts pounding. Elira pressed her palm to the controls, sending a surge through the forge's diagnostic network. Consoles exploded in sparks, and a massive vent opened above, sending scalding steam into the air. Soldiers staggered back, coughing and shielding their eyes. In the chaos, Elira grabbed Aiden's arm. "We go now," she urged. They sprinted toward a narrow service hatch at the cavern's edge. Behind them, the forge's heart pulsed wildly, reacting to the sabotage. Rohan and the rebels covered their retreat, voices shouting orders and gunfire echoing. When Aiden and Allura slipped through the hatch, the tunnel sealed behind them with a thunderous clang. They heard the rumble of collapse and the dying hum of plasma. Emerging into the chill of an upper shaft, they paused to catch their breath. "We have the proof," Aiden said, voice low but fierce. Allura nodded, violet eyes shining. "Now the real fight begins."